My mom always used the same tone when she wanted something from me. Not a request, not a conversation, a soft, sweet little honey, the kind that was supposed to make you forget you were about to be cornered. So when she called me on a Tuesday afternoon and said, "Honey, are you sitting down?" I knew, before she even got to the point, that she was about to ask for money. I just didn't know she'd already taken it. I'm Megan Dalton. I'm 34. I live in Austin, Texas, in a 2-bedroom rental that I pay for on my own, with a dog that sheds like it's his full-time job, and a calendar that's basically color-coded stress. I'm the kind of woman people describe as reliable, and they say it like it's a compliment. It usually means I'm the one who fixes everything. And for most of my life, my family treated that like my role, not my choice. My role. My dad left when I was 9. One day he was there, and the next he was gone, leaving behind a dent in the couch, a stack of overdue bills, and a mother who learned to smile through clenched teeth. My mom, Linda, raised my younger brother, Jake, and me like she was holding 2 glass plates in the air at all times. She worked as a receptionist at a dental office for years, then did bookkeeping for a small construction company. Always between raises, always one bad month away from disaster. And from the outside, I looked like the kid who made it out. Good grades, scholarships. I left for college and never really came back. Not in the way Jake did. He stayed close. He stayed needy. He stayed. Jake. Jake is 5 years younger than me, charming in a way that makes strangers forgive him for being irresponsible. He smiles like he's harmless and talks like he's figuring things out, even when he's been figuring things out for a decade. He always had a dream, always a plan, always a next big thing. And my mom always believed him. Or maybe she didn't believe him. Maybe she just wanted to. Because believing in Jake meant she didn't have to look too closely at how disappointing her life felt. I learned early that if I wanted stability, I had to build it myself. I took internships nobody else wanted. I lived with roommates who stole my oat milk. I bought my first car used and kept it alive with prayers and regular oil changes. I climbed into a career in corporate benefits compliance. One of those jobs people don't understand until something goes wrong, which is funny because that's what this story is. Something went wrong. And it started with my 401k. I'd been contributing since my first real job out of college, not because I loved thinking about retirement at 22, but because my company matched, and because I'm the kind of person who listens when HR says, start early. I kept increasing my contribution percentage every year, 1% here, 2% there. When I got promoted, I kept my expenses the same and shoved the difference into retirement. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. By the time I was 34, my 401k balance had finally crossed into a number that made me feel safe. Not rich, not retire tomorrow, but safe. A 6-figure cushion I'd built slowly, like stacking bricks one at a time. I'd even started dreaming a little, maybe buying a small house outside the city. Maybe taking a real vacation that didn't involve me answering emails from a hotel room. Maybe being able to say no to things without fear. That's the thing about money for women like me. It isn't about shopping sprees. It's about breathing. So when I logged into my retirement account one morning, just casually, because I like checking things the way some people check the weather, I didn't expect to feel my stomach drop. The screen loaded, and for a second I thought the site had glitched, because my balance was lower. Not by a little, by a lot. At first, my brain tried to rationalize it. Market dip, delayed update, wrong tab. But there it was, bold and undeniable in the transaction history. Distribution, $48,000. Reason, hardship withdrawal. My hands went cold. I stared at the words like I could force them to rearrange into something else. Hardship withdrawal. I hadn't requested one. I hadn't even considered one. I didn't have hardship. I had anxiety and a busy schedule and a dog who needed allergy meds, not hardship. I clicked into the details with shaking fingers. There was a date. There was a processing confirmation. There was a bank account listed for direct deposit. Not mine. Not the credit union account I'd had since college. This was some other bank, some other routing number. And then I saw something that made my throat tighten. The phone number on the profile had been changed the week before the withdrawal. The email address had been changed to one I didn't recognize. That's when my heart started pounding, hard enough that I had to sit back in my chair. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even curse. I did what I've always done when something feels wrong. I started documenting. I took screenshots of everything: the balance, the transaction ID, the bank account information, the profile changes. I forwarded copies to my personal email, downloaded PDFs, saved timestamps. Only then did I pick up my phone. I didn't call the plan provider first. I called my mom. She answered on the second ring, cheerful, breathless, like she'd been waiting. "Oh, hi, honey. I was just about to call you." That sentence alone told me everything. "Mom," I said slowly, "did you touch my 401k? Silence. Not confusion, not surprise. Silence. Then a sigh. The kind people make when they think you're being dramatic. "Megan, we were going to tell you." My fingers dug into the arm of my chair. "Tell me what?" Another sigh, longer. Jake had an opportunity. There it was. I laughed once. A sharp, ugly sound that didn't feel like it came from me. "You withdrew my retirement savings," I said, "because Jake had an opportunity?" "Don't say it like that," she snapped, suddenly defensive. "No one stole anything. I'm your mother." That sentence hit harder than I expected, because I'd heard it my whole life. I'm your mother. As if that was a legal document. As if that erased consent. "How did you even access it?" I asked. "I never gave you. You listed me as a beneficiary years ago." She cut in. "And when your father left, remember? We set things up together. I still had some of your information, your social security, your security questions." My stomach churned. "So you impersonated me." "I did what I had to do," she said like she was proud of it. "Jake needed help." There it was again. Jake needed help. Not I betrayed your trust. Not I crossed a line. Just Jake needed help. "What opportunity?" I asked. She hesitated, then said it with the brightness of someone announcing a wedding. "He's opening a craft beverage lounge. It's going to be huge. Kombucha, cold brew, adaptogenic drinks, mocktails. Very trendy. His friend from high school knows a guy who does branding and—" "Mom," I interrupted, "you withdrew $48,000. "I know," she said quickly, "and we'll pay it back. We, not Jake. We." "When?" I asked. "Soon, once the business takes off." "And if it doesn't?" Another pause. "Megan," she said in that gentle voice she used when she wanted to sound reasonable, "you make good money. You can recover. Jake doesn't have that kind of stability." There it was. The sentence that would follow me like a shadow for months. You can recover. Like my life was a spare tire. Like my future was optional. I ended the call because I could feel myself shaking, and I didn't want her to hear my voice crack and feel like she'd won something. I sat there for a long time, staring at my laptop, listening to my dog snore on the couch like nothing in the world was wrong. Then reality punched me again. A 401k withdrawal isn't just money moved. It's taxes, penalties, IRS forms, a potential 10% early distribution penalty. A 1099-R showing up at tax time, like a slap in the face. Even if they paid me back tomorrow, the damage was already done. I called the plan provider and spent 40 minutes on hold, listening to upbeat music that made me want to scream. When I finally got a representative, I kept my voice calm the way my job taught me to. "Hi," I said. "There's an unauthorized distribution on my account." The rep asked me security questions my mother had apparently changed. I had to prove who I was through a different process: uploading a photo ID, verifying employment, answering additional identity checks. When the rep pulled up the file, she paused. "I do see a hardship withdrawal processed last week," she said. "It was requested online and verified through a phone call." My throat tightened. "What phone call?" I asked. "It looks like the phone number on file was updated, and then the call verification was completed through that number." "Not my number," I said. "I understand," she said gently, her tone shifting. "We can open a fraud investigation. We'll need a written statement, and we may advise filing a police report." Police report. It sounded dramatic, like something that happened to other people, but it was my money, my future. And my mother was the one who did it. I asked for copies of everything: IP logs if they had them, any forms uploaded, any recordings. She explained they couldn't release everything immediately, but they could provide transaction confirmations and the updated profile history. Then she said something else that made my stomach drop again. "Just so you're aware," she said, "a hardship withdrawal usually requires documentation, like proof of eviction, medical bills, funeral expenses, something like that." I blinked. "So someone submitted documents?" "It appears so, yes." After I got off the phone, I stared at the ceiling and tried to breathe, because it wasn't just impersonation. It was fabrication. They didn't just take my money. They created a story to justify it. I drove to my mom's house that night. She lived in a modest one-story in Round Rock, the kind of neighborhood with basketball hoops and driveways and American flags out year-round. I pulled up and sat in my car for a moment, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I didn't want to go inside, because going inside meant stepping back into the version of me that always tried to be understanding. And I wasn't sure that version of me could survive this. But I went. My mom opened the door before I even knocked, like she'd been watching through the blinds. "Megan," she said quickly, trying to smile. "Come in, honey." Inside, the house smelled like lemon cleaner and candles. Everything was too neat, like she'd been scrubbing away guilt. Jake was there, sprawled on the couch with his shoes off like he owned the place. He looked up when he saw me and gave me a grin. "Hey, sis." I didn't greet him. I held up my phone with the transaction screenshot. "You took $48,000 from my 401k, I said. "What did you submit as hardship documentation?" Jake's grin faded. Mom's face tightened. "We didn't think you'd react like this," she said. "Answer the question," I said, my voice sharper than I expected. Jake stood up slowly, palms out like I was a wild animal. Okay, he said. "Calm down." "Don't tell me to calm down," I snapped. "You drained my retirement account." Mom's voice turned stern, the way it did when she wanted control. "Megan, this attitude." "This attitude?" I laughed again, that same ugly sound. "Do you hear yourself?" Jake stepped closer, trying his charm like a shield. "It's not like we robbed a bank," he said. "It's family. You'll get it back." "You don't even know how 401ks work," I said. "You can't just borrow from it like it's a checking account." Mom crossed her arms. "Your brother needed a chance," she said. "You're always talking about women supporting women and building futures. Jake is trying to build something too." I stared at her. "Did you just compare my retirement to a kombucha bar?" Jake flinched. "It's not just kombucha," he muttered. It's a wellness lounge. I looked at him like he was insane. You use my money for a wellness lounge? He shrugged, a defensive now. You make good money, he said. You'll recover. You can earn it back. There it was again. You'll recover. Like I wasn't allowed to be angry because I'd worked hard enough to have something worth stealing. I took a breath, forcing myself to slow down. What documents did you submit? I asked again. Mom's eyes flicked away. Jake's jaw tightened. Then Mom said it, like she was admitting she'd borrowed sugar. We used some paperwork from your last apartment, she said quietly. The lease, and a notice. I froze. A notice? I repeated. She swallowed. Jake cut in, impatient. It was just something to satisfy the system, he said. Those companies make you jump through hoops. We did what we had to do. I felt my chest tighten. You forged eviction documentation, I said, my voice low now, dangerous. You told them I was facing housing hardship? Mom lifted her chin. You were going to move eventually, she said, like that made it okay. My vision blurred for a second, from rage or disbelief or both. You committed fraud, I said, not just against me, against the plan. Mom's face hardened. And that's when she became someone I didn't recognize. Megan, she said, don't threaten us. We're your family. I stared at her and realized something that made my stomach twist. They truly didn't think they'd done anything unforgivable. They thought I would fold. They thought I would fix it. Because I always had. I backed toward the door, my hands shaking. I'm filing a fraud report, I said, and you're going to pay it back. Mom's eyes widened. You wouldn't, she said, as if I'd threatened to burn the house down. Jake scoffed. You're really going to call the cops on your own mother? I looked at him. You already called the cops on me, I said quietly. They both stared. The plan provider is going to require a police report, I said, and the IRS is going to see that 1099-R. I'm not taking the tax hit for something you stole. Mom's voice went high, panicked. Megan, please, don't do this. People will talk. People will talk. Not my daughter is devastated. Not my son is a thief. Just people will talk. I walked out. In my car, I sat there and cried so hard I couldn't breathe, because grief and rage feel a lot alike when it comes from the same place. I wasn't just losing money. I was losing the illusion that my family loved me more than they needed me. The next morning, I did what my job trained me to do. I treated it like a case. I filed the fraud report with the plan provider. I locked down my account, changed every password, added multi-factor authentication, updated my beneficiary information, removed my mom's access to anything. Then I drove to the police station. Walking in felt surreal. Like I was stepping into someone else's life. The officer at the front desk asked what I needed. I swallowed hard. I need to file a report for identity theft and financial fraud, I said. It involves my 401k. He raised his eyebrows slightly. Okay, he said. Have a seat. Sitting there under fluorescent lights, surrounded by people waiting for traffic tickets and lost property and things that felt small compared to what was happening in my chest, I kept thinking, I'm really doing this. I'm really reporting my mother. The officer who took my statement was calm, professional. He asked for details, timelines, documents. I handed him printed screenshots and the transaction confirmation. When I said, it was my mother, my voice almost broke. He didn't react emotionally. He just nodded and wrote it down. Do you know where the funds went? He asked. Yes, I said. To my brother, for a business. He asked for their names, addresses, phone numbers. Each time I answered, it felt like I was cutting a thread that used to tie me to them. When I left with the case number in my hand, I sat in my car, and stared at it. A case number. That's what my family had become. A case. I called a tax professional that afternoon because I couldn't stop thinking about the penalties. She listened, then said, "You'll want to document everything. If it's fraud, you may have options, but it's complicated." Complicated. That's what betrayal always becomes when money is involved. Then I called an attorney. I didn't want to. I didn't want to be that person, the one who sues family, the one who ends holidays, the one who makes everyone pick sides. But my family already picked a side. They picked Jake, they picked the fantasy, they picked themselves. The attorney, a woman with a steady voice and zero patience for nonsense, asked me one question that made everything clear. "Do you want the money back?" she asked. "Or do you want peace?" I laughed bitterly. "I want both," I said. She sighed, like she'd heard that answer 1,000 times. "Then we start with boundaries," she said, "and we use the law to enforce them. We sent a demand letter first, certified mail, formal language, a deadline. It stated the facts: unauthorized access, fraudulent hardship withdrawal, forged documentation, identity theft, damages including tax consequences and penalties. It demanded repayment of the full amount, plus associated costs, and warned of civil action. My mom called me the day she received it. She didn't say hello. "How could you do this to me?" she screamed. I held the phone away from my ear. "How could I do this to you?" I repeated, stunned by the audacity. "You're humiliating me," she cried, "after everything I've done for you." I could hear Jake in the background shouting something, his voice muffled but angry. I took a breath. "You committed fraud," I said. "You stole from me. You forged documents. You put me at risk with the IRS. This isn't about humiliation. This is about consequences." Her voice shifted sharper now. "You're being selfish," she snapped. "Your brother was trying to build something. You're always so cold." Cold? Because I didn't want my future stolen. Because I didn't want to be used. Because I wasn't willing to sacrifice myself on the altar of Jake's latest dream. "I'm done," I said quietly. "You have until the deadline." Then I hung up. For a few days, the house went quiet. No calls, no texts. And part of me hoped, stupidly, that maybe this would shock them into accountability. Then my Aunt Carol texted me. She lived in Houston, loved gossip, and always called herself the truth teller, like it was a spiritual gift. Her message was simple. "What is wrong with you? Your mother is devastated. Family doesn't sue family." I stared at the screen. My hands were shaking again, but not from fear this time. From anger. Because it wasn't family doesn't steal from family. It wasn't family doesn't forge documents. It wasn't family doesn't commit fraud. No, it was family doesn't fight back. Another text came from my cousin. "Heard you're trying to ruin Linda's life over money?" That's so messed up. Over money. Like it was a petty argument. Like it wasn't my retirement, my years of discipline, my sense of safety. The narrative had already been rewritten, and I was the villain in their story. That's when I understood something my therapist had tried to tell me years earlier, when I complained about always being the responsible one. Families like mine don't hate boundaries because boundaries are wrong. They hate boundaries because boundaries work. The escalation came fast after that. My mom showed up at my apartment unannounced, pounding on my door like she lived there. When I didn't open it, she left a handwritten letter under my doormat. It was 3 pages of guilt wrapped in cursive. "Megan, I did what I thought was best. You know your brother struggles. You have always been strong. You have always been okay. Please don't punish us for believing in him." There it was again. "You have always been okay," as if my strength wasn't something I built. as if it wasn't something that cost me. Jake sent me a voice memo. His tone wasn't apologetic. It was annoyed, like I'd inconvenienced him. "Look, Megan," he said, "this is getting out of hand. We're going to pay you back, all right? But you're messing up my launch. Investors don't like drama. Just chill for a bit." Investors? He said it like he had a boardroom. He had a leased storefront and a logo. I didn't respond. Then the truth started leaking in pieces. A week later, my mom called again, voice trembling. "Megan," she said, suddenly soft, "your brother, he needs more time." I laughed without humor. "You haven't paid anything," I said. "We're trying," she insisted, "but there were expenses." Expenses? I later found out those expenses included a $3,000 neon sign that said "Vibe Well" in pink cursive, custom glassware, and a grand opening party deposit. They weren't paying me back. They were spending faster. Then my attorney called me with an update from the plan provider's fraud team. "They reviewed the documentation submitted for hardship," she said. "It appears to include an eviction notice and a utility shutoff warning." A utility shutoff warning. My throat tightened. "That's not mine," I whispered. "No," she said. "And if those documents are forged, that's a bigger issue." I knew what she meant. Criminal, not just family drama. Criminal. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept replaying childhood memories. My mom brushing my hair, my mom packing my lunch, my mom cheering at my graduation, trying to reconcile them with the woman who had looked me in the eye and called theft help. Around 3 a.m., I got up and opened my laptop. I searched my old email archives, digging for anything related to my previous apartments. I found an old scanned lease, old move-out notices, utility emails. Then I found something else. A PDF I didn't recognize, saved in an old folder from years ago when my mom helped me with paperwork during a move. It was labeled notice.pdf. I opened it. It was a template eviction notice. Not even real. A template. My stomach lurched. She didn't just use paperwork. She manufactured hardship out of thin air. I forwarded it to my attorney. In the morning, I got a text from my mom that made my skin crawl. "Please stop. Jake is really stressed. He can't handle this right now." He can't handle this. But I could handle losing $48,000. I could handle the tax consequences. I could handle the anxiety, because I'm Megan. I'm reliable. I realized then that the breaking point wasn't the money. The breaking point was the expectation. The expectation that I would always swallow damage to protect their comfort. I wasn't doing it anymore. 2 weeks after the demand letter deadline passed with no payment, we filed the lawsuit. It wasn't dramatic like TV. No courtroom gasps, no surprise confessions under oath. It was paperwork, filing fees, service of process. A process server delivered the papers to my mom's house on a Friday afternoon. I know, because Jake texted me immediately, furious. "What the hell is wrong with you? Mom is crying. You're insane." I stared at his message for a long time. Then I typed back one sentence. "Return the money." He responded with a string of insults so childish I almost laughed. My attorney advised me not to engage further, so I didn't. Instead, I kept collecting evidence. Every text, every voicemail, every letter, every bank record we could subpoena. And slowly, the truth grew teeth. The bank account that received the funds was in Jake's name, but my mom was listed as an authorized user. The money wasn't just for the business. It had been transferred in chunks, some to the landlord for the lease, some to a marketing firm, some to a car payment, some withdrawn in cash. Cash. There was no tracking cash. There was only intent, and the intent was never repayment. By early fall, Jake's Wellness Lounge opened. I know because my Aunt Carol posted about it on Facebook like it was a miracle. Proud of Jake for chasing his dreams. Grand opening this weekend. Family is everything. I stared at the post, feeling sick. Then I saw the photos. My mom standing in the doorway smiling like she'd won. Jake behind the counter, wearing a black apron, grinning. A balloon arch, a ribbon cutting, a tray of mini cupcakes. The comments were full of praise. So proud. You go, Jake. Linda raised such great kids. I wanted to scream. Because if anyone had asked where the money came from, my mom would have smiled and said, "We made it work." We. Always we. 3 months later, the business collapsed. It didn't happen in one dramatic moment. It died the way most bad ideas die. Slowly, quietly, expensively. The rent was too high. The foot traffic was weak. The trend wasn't enough. People weren't paying $9 for mushroom-infused cold brew in a strip mall next to a vape shop. Jake started posting motivational quotes on Instagram. If you don't build your dream, someone will hire you to build theirs. My jaw clenched every time I saw it. Then my mom called me again, her voice thin. "Megan," she whispered, "we need to talk." I already knew what was coming. "I'm not giving you money," I said before she could start. She gasped. "I'm not asking for money." She lied. I waited. Then she broke. "Jake is behind on the lease," she said. "They're threatening eviction. And the equipment loans, the lenders, they're calling. We just need a little help to get through this month." I laughed, bitter and exhausted. "A little help?" I repeated. "After you stole from me?" "Megan, please," she cried. "He's going to lose everything. Everything. Everything he'd built with my stolen retirement. And now, they wanted more." I took a deep breath. "The court case is still happening," I said. "You're going to repay what you took? That's the only conversation we're having." Her voice turned sharp, desperate. "So you're really going to let your brother fail? You're going to sit back and watch?" I thought of all the nights I'd watched my own needs get ignored. All the times I'd watched Jake get rescued. All the times I'd watched my mom choose him. "I'm not letting him fail," I said quietly. "He chose this. You chose this." She whispered my name like it was a curse. Then she said the sentence that finally snapped something clean inside me. "You're not acting like family." I paused, then replied softly, "Neither are you." And I hung up. The fallout was immediate. My grandmother called, voice trembling. "Megan, honey," she said, "your mother says you're suing them." "I am," I said. There was a pause, heavy with disappointment. "Sweetheart," she said, "you know Jake is sensitive. He's not like you. Not like you." The same old story. I swallowed hard. "Grandma," I said, "I'm not a bank. I'm not a backup plan. I'm not responsible for Jake's choices." She sighed, like I was stubborn. "Your mother did her best," she murmured. I almost laughed again, but this time it wasn't funny at all. Her best involved committing fraud. Her best involved stealing my future. Her best involved calling it love. By the time the court date approached, I felt like I was living two lives. In one life, I went to work, attended meetings, walked my dog, smiled at neighbors, pretended I was fine. In the other life, I gathered evidence, met with attorneys, read bank statements, and prepared to face my family in a way I never had before. The decision to sue wasn't just about money. It was about telling the truth out loud, in a room where they couldn't rewrite it. On the day of mediation, I drove to the office building where it was being held, my hands sweaty on the steering wheel. It wasn't a courthouse. It was a neutral office suite with beige walls and stale coffee. The kind of place where people go to try to avoid public embarrassment. My mom was already there when I walked in. She looked smaller than usual, but her eyes were still sharp. Jake sat beside her, tapping his foot, jaw clenched. He looked like he hadn't slept. Good, I thought. I hadn't either. My attorney greeted me calmly, then guided me into a room. The mediator was a middle-aged man with a neutral voice, trained to keep emotions from exploding. But emotions don't care about training. The first time I saw my mom across that table, something hot and painful rose in my throat. This woman had held my hand when I got my first period. This woman had been my entire world after my dad left. And now she was here because she stole from me. Jake spoke first, irritated. "Can we just settle this?" he said. "This is ridiculous." I stared at him. "What part is ridiculous?" I asked. "The part where you took my money? Or the part where I refused to pretend it didn't matter?" Mom's lips pressed tight. "Megan," she said, "we came here to fix this, not to be attacked." I blinked. Attacked. She still saw herself as the victim. My attorney slid a folder across the table. "These are the records," she said calmly. "Unauthorized account changes, the hardship documentation, the bank deposits, the cash withdrawals, the timeline." Jake's face tightened. Mom's eyes flicked down, then up again with anger. "You don't understand," she insisted. "We were desperate." I leaned forward, my voice low. "No," I said. "You were entitled." The room went quiet. The mediator cleared his throat. "Let's focus on resolution," he said gently. "Resolution." I nodded, forcing myself to stay steady. "I want the money returned," I said. "All of it. And I want written acknowledgement of what was done, because I'm not taking the tax consequences quietly." Jake snorted. "We don't have $48,000. He snapped. My attorney didn't flinch. "Then we discuss a repayment plan," she said, "with a judgment that can be enforced." Mom's voice cracked. "Megan, please," she whispered, tears forming. "Don't ruin us." I stared at her. "You didn't worry about ruining me," I said. That's when Jake slammed his hand on the table. "This is your fault," he snapped at me. "If you had just helped in the first place, Mom wouldn't have had to do this." The mediator raised his hands. "No," I said, cutting him off. My voice was calm, but it shook the air. "Let him say it." Jake's chest rose and fell quickly. He leaned toward me, eyes wild. "You're selfish," he spat. "You always thought you were better than us because you got out." I smiled. Small, bitter. "I got out because someone had to," I said. "Because when Dad left, you didn't become the responsible one." I did. Mom sobbed quietly. Jake continued, fueled by resentment. "You have everything," he said. "A career, stability. You don't even have kids. What do you need retirement for?" That sentence hit like a slap. The casual cruelty of it. Like, because I didn't have children, I didn't deserve security. Like my future didn't matter. I leaned back slowly. "Thank you," I said. Jake blinked. "For what?" he snapped. "For saying that out loud," I said. "Because now there's no confusion about who you are." The mediator's face tightened, sensing the danger. But it was already done. The room had shifted. Because Jake had just revealed the truth. He didn't see my 401k as mine. He saw it as extra, something I didn't need, a resource the family could tap, like I was a shared account. I stood up. My attorney touched my arm lightly, a silent question. I shook my head. I was done with pretending. "I'm not here to beg you to be decent," I said. "I'm here to enforce what you should have done voluntarily." I looked at my mom. "Linda," I said, using her first name for the first time in my life, "you chose him over me again. Now you can live with what that costs." Her face went pale. Jake scoffed. But I saw something flicker behind his eyes. Fear. because for the first time, the fix-it sister wasn't fixing it. We left mediation without a settlement, which meant court, which meant public record. My mom's greatest fear: people will talk. Good, I thought. Maybe they should. The court hearing was scheduled for late November, right before Thanksgiving. Of course it was, because life has a cruel sense of humor. My family always treated Thanksgiving like the sacred holiday. The one day everyone had to show up, smile, and pretend nothing was broken. My mom hosted every year: turkey, stuffing, green bean casserole, pumpkin pie from Costco, football on in the background, forced laughter. This year, I wasn't invited. Instead, I got a group text from my Aunt Carol. "We're praying you come to your senses before court. Thanksgiving is about forgiveness." I stared at the message. Forgiveness, always demanded from the person who was harmed, never asked of the person who caused harm. On the morning of the hearing, I dressed like I was going to war. Black blazer, simple blouse, hair pulled back. I brought a binder of documents and a quiet fury that felt like steel. My attorney met me outside the courthouse. Inside, the air smelled like old carpet and anxiety. My mom arrived with Jake, both of them looking tense. She avoided my eyes. Jake glared at me like I was the reason his fantasy died. We sat on opposite sides of the courtroom like strangers, and in a way, we were. When the judge called the case, everything became surreal. My name, their names, the facts spoken aloud: unauthorized access, fraudulent withdrawal, forged documentation. Hearing it in that room made my stomach twist, because it sounded worse than it even felt. My mom's attorney tried to soften it. "She acted out of desperation," he said. "She intended repayment. This is a family dispute." My attorney stood, calm and sharp. "This is not a misunderstanding," she said. "This is identity theft and financial fraud, and Ms. Dalton should not bear the tax consequences of a crime committed against her." The judge asked my mom questions directly. "Did you access your daughter's 401k without her authorization?" the judge asked. My mom's voice trembled. I did," she admitted. The judge's eyes narrowed. "Did you submit documentation claiming hardship?" My mom swallowed. "Yes," she whispered. The judge paused. "And was that documentation truthful?" Silence. A long, suffocating silence. Jake shifted in his seat. My mom's face crumpled. "No," she said, barely audible. "No." Just like that. The truth, finally spoken without excuses. My chest tightened, not with victory, but with grief, because I never wanted to be right this way. The judge issued a judgment: repayment of the withdrawn amount, a structured payment plan with enforcement options if they defaulted, responsibility for associated fees, a directive for documentation to support the fraud claim with the plan provider to mitigate tax impact. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't instant, but it was real, and it was enforceable. Outside the courtroom, my mom finally looked at me. Her eyes were red. "Megan," she whispered, "please, we can fix this." Jake stepped forward too, voice rough. "I didn't think it would go this far," he muttered. I stared at him. He didn't say sorry. He said he didn't think it would go this far. Like consequences were something that happened by accident. "I need you to understand something," I said quietly, my voice steady, even as my heart pounded. "You didn't just steal money. You stole my trust. You stole my sense of safety. And you both acted like it was my job to absorb it." Mom started crying again. Jake's face twisted. "We'll pay," he said quickly. "We will. Just don't cut us off." Cut us off. Like that was the real fear. Not the crime, not the betrayal, the loss of access. I took a breath. "I'm not your safety net anymore," I said. "I'm not your backup plan. I'm not your solution. Mom reached for my hand. I stepped back. Her hand hung in the air, empty. And for a moment, I saw her the way she truly was. A woman who had built her entire emotional world around rescuing her son, even if it meant sacrificing her daughter. Then Jake did something that almost made me laugh. He dropped to his knees, right there on the courthouse steps, like we were in some soap opera. "Megan," he pleaded, voice cracking. "Please, I'm drowning. I just need one more chance. One more loan. I'll sign anything. I'll work. People walking by glanced over. My mom gasped, embarrassed. And suddenly, I understood the twist in a way that felt painfully clear. Jake's business dream was never the real dream. The real dream was entitlement. The dream that someone else would always pay. He wasn't begging for forgiveness. He was begging for access. I looked down at him, my voice soft but final. "Stand up," I said. He blinked up at me, desperate. I shook my head slowly. "No," I said. "This ends here." Jake's face crumpled. My mom whispered, "Megan, please. He's your brother." I nodded. "I know," I said, "and I'm still saying no." Jake's mouth opened like he wanted to argue, but he couldn't find words, because for the first time, my answer didn't come with guilt. It came with peace. The repayment didn't happen quickly. It came in chunks, forced, resented, late. Some months they paid. Some months they tried to delay. My attorney enforced the judgment when they missed deadlines. Wage garnishment became a threat that made them suddenly find the money. Jake had to get a real job, not founder, not entrepreneur. A job. He worked at a car dealership for a while, then at a warehouse. He hated it. He blamed me. He blamed the system. He blamed everyone but himself. My mom picked up extra hours. She stopped posting proud family photos on Facebook. People did talk, just like she feared. And the thing is, it didn't destroy me. It freed me. Because once your family labels you the villain for refusing to be exploited, you realize something powerful. You were never the hero in their story anyway. The next Thanksgiving, I made my own tradition. I didn't go to Round Rock. I didn't sit at my mom's table under fake warmth. I didn't eat turkey while swallowing resentment. I invited 2 friends from work who didn't have family nearby. We ordered smoked turkey from a local BBQ place, made mashed potatoes, watched football, and laughed until my cheeks hurt. No guilt, no walking on eggshells, no pretending. After dinner, I took my dog for a walk under the cool Texas night sky and realized I could breathe again. That was my new life, not perfect, not painless, but mine. And the message I wish someone had drilled into my head earlier is simple. Being the strong one doesn't mean you deserve to be used. Love without respect isn't love. It's leverage. A few months later, I got one last voicemail from my mom. Her voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it. "Megan," she said, "I miss you. I don't know how we got here. I'm sorry for what I did." I listened twice, because part of me wanted to believe it. But I noticed what she didn't say. She didn't say she was sorry for choosing Jake over me. She didn't say she was sorry for making me responsible. She didn't say she understood. It was still about her pain, her loss, her confusion. So I didn't call back. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, logged into my retirement account, watching the balance slowly rebuild, brick by brick. My future was mine again. And the next time anyone in my family tried to use that soft, sweet tone, "Honey," I didn't flinch, because I'd learned the difference between love and manipulation. And when they realized I was serious, when the checks kept coming, when the court order stayed real, when my no didn't budge, they froze. The room went silent. They never forgot. And that changed everything.